Hi, I'm Gloria Strode and welcome to Straightforward. Today, my very special guest is the one and only veteran journalist and author, Richard Hyatt. So you are back.
I don't know how long it's been.
But you started this journey with me.
First day.
Yes, you did. The very first show. We are in the 5th season.
I know.
How time has really passed. And I certainly appreciate your support over the years. And our biggest adventure to date, because we have to take another one, is when we went to the Pulaski State Prison for Women. And it was because you had these powerful journalism credentials that the Department of Corrections would even consider letting us come in and talk to the warden, which was a great experience for me. Of course, you had done a lot of those things because you know, worked for the newspaper here, worked in Atlanta in the industry. So you kind of already had this pristine reputation.
Well, it was because of my reputation is they let us out.
They were not going to keep us there, right? But no, really, you started your career where? Because you've been a journalist a long time.
I was 21 years old, so.
Just a kid.
I started about 1965.
Really? Mm-hmm. And you started in Atlanta?
At the Atlanta Times, which was a brand new newspaper in Atlanta. And it never got to be an old newspaper. It was gone within a year and a half.
So it was the Atlanta Times. Did we have the Atlanta Journal at that time?
Yes, this was an attempt to be opposition for the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, but the Atlanta Times was an afternoon paper, just like the Journal was then. They were two separate papers. And it was a great idea that failed for a number of reasons.
Okay, so you were with the startup newspaper.
Right.
And the Atlanta Journal and the Atlanta Constitution, they were two separate papers.
They were, it was a co-ownership, but it was still separate
like morning and evening. Just like with the Columbus Ledger Inquirer, people don't understand a lot. Well, I will say, some people new to the area do not understand the history of the Columbus Ledger Inquirer because we had one was the morning and one was the afternoon. Which one was the morning?
Oh, the Columbus Inquirer. And that's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't understand, including some of the current people at the newspaper. I was on the Inquirer. I was a sports editor of the morning paper, and then there was the afternoon paper, and we had separate staffs. We worked in the same building and all that. But basically, we didn't like each other. Really?
It was competitive?
Very competitive. And it was good. It was good for both operations to have a little check and balance. Right.
So if you were the Inquirer, which was the morning team, and then the Ledger was the evening team, and if you didn't get it right in the morning, then they were going to try to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, they should if we made a blunder or if we had something off base. But you know, it was just a good way to operate. I still think.
Yes.
Although there's just no place for two newspapers in hardly any community, much less a small to medium size like Columbus.
Right.
And it, when the afternoon paper was shutting down and they were going to be no more, the executive editor who was over both newspapers assigned me to do the final edition of the Ledger.
Really? That's like doing the obituary of the paper.
It was.
Wow.
And you know, I thought it was a nice honor to me to do it. But to a lot of the people in the building, they said, "What's he doing that for?" He's an Inquirer guy.
Oh.
And they felt like I was going to not do the same, not do justice to the Ledger. And I think I did. I hope I did.
Yeah.
But that was how the conflicts were, even inside the building.
Really? And that was that historic building with the beautiful architecture on the outside. And of course, we kind of still have a piece of that structure.
Well, it's 17 West 12th Street. And yes, the building's still there, and it's in much better condition now. The Columbus State University owns the property, and they've done a nice job restoring. Because I retired technically in 2009, and they had a going away thing, and I just made a comment.
Right.
That, well, I hope in the future, now that I'm leaving here, I hope one day I can come back and see a fresh coat of paint on this place.
So the paint had been the same the whole time that you had been there?
Like, it's practically, it was an expensive proposition.
Right.
I think it had probably been touched up over the years, but it had been a long time.
Yeah.
And it.
And how long were you at the paper?
Came here in '72, left in '09, 37 years.
Oh, okay. So
I continued to write
as
one
a
or two
contributor.
columns from 2009 until 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of all of that, you were still writing all of these books that we're going to be talking about today. And some of those great stories. And I just love the one about the Carters. You know, that's my favorite one. And I was actually sharing that with someone in the building about your adventure with Mrs. Carter, the real Mrs. Carter. But you were just being a newspaper guy doing what newspaper and media people do. But you have firsthand knowledge of a lot of the Columbus, Georgia history, you know, although you're not born and raised here, but just being in the industry, you know, and being on the ground and moving around. And that was before we had the computers, you know, we had typewriters. And I always think of you when I would see Andy Rooney at the end of 60 Minutes, you know, because that's people really put in a lot of work, you know, when journalism was really journalism. Now we have a lot of quick news. It's a little more microwave. It's not like you sitting there all night typing it out, you know, trying to get it ready to meet the deadlines.
Well, my 9-year-old daughter wants to sit down at my laptop sometimes, and she gets mad because the keys are all the letters are been peeled off.
Really?
Because I type on the keyboard like I did on a Royal typewriter.
Yeah.
And I'm really
just ta. Right, and it's not like that light touch.
No, it's not.
You got to make those noises to feel like you're really doing some work.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do now, Richard, we're going to go to our first break to our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Chalk by Quincy introduces Excellence Redefined, timepieces of the finest technology, luxury, and class with tons of style at chalklifestyle.com. Renal Associates, LLC, a team of physicians dedicated to excellent kidney care with 5 convenient locations to serve you. Stark Avenue, Columbus, Bradley Park Drive, Columbus, Lafayette Parkway, LaGrange, West Washington Street, Eufaula, and Spring Street in Warm Springs. Vanessa Jackson's District 3 Successful Scholars Program, supporting students in achieving academic excellence, outstanding citizenship, positive social and cultural growth, believing in success for kids. Dr. Sheikha Shaw Family Medicine, connecting your health to your future. Dr. Shaw prides herself in providing compassionate health care and establishing long-lasting relationships. Conveniently located at 2827 Warm Springs Road, Suite 3B. Call her today at 706-324-4177.
Come meet your new best friend at Paws Humane.
Adopting from your shelter makes sense. You get a great friend checked by our vet. They're fixed, all shots, microchipped, all ready to make you and your family's life better. 4900 Milton Road, Columbus. Paws Humane.
Come meet your new best friend at Paws Humane.
Welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with the awesome, legendary journalist, Richard Hyatt. Richard, the book, 40 Years of Journalism. That includes all of those great stories that you've covered, things you've written about over 40 years here in Columbus. During that time, you were still a writer when we had the 911 incident. Share with our audience, because we are at that time of the year again, share with our audience where you were, what you were doing, and how crazy did the newsroom go?
Well, that's an easy answer from most people. Where were you on 9/11? I was a city government reporter, so I was at Columbus Council. And council meetings started about 9. We usually gathered at 8:30, coffee in the back room or something. And someone came out as council was beginning and said, the plane just hit the World Trade Center. No one thought that much about it, but I just went back to see what was going on, and by the time I got in the room, the second plane hit.
Right.
And it was a strange day in city government because Bobby Peters was the mayor then, and he was out of town at some kind of conference. Later on that day, we learned the police chief was out of town.
Oh my goodness! So two of our main people that handles the security of the city, they were.
But Jack Rogers was the mayor pro tem, and he was presiding. Did a marvelous job because he was on live television, and he was very reassuring to anybody that might have been watching that everything's okay. We've got it under control. And during the meeting, the mayor's assistant was kind of J. Edward Wilson.
Right.
Used to be on this
Yeah,
station.
Mr. Wilson. Yeah.
And he came out and whispered to him and Jack Rogers really that if you're coming downtown, the main entrances to the government center
So they just shut,
closed.
even though that was New York, they shut everything down just for safety reasons because we were not clear on what was going on.
No, and they closed those entrances and changed them around, and they've never reopened. 17 years later, we're still. Of course, now we've got all the leaky pipes down there and all that. The building's changing anyway, but But it was a really unique day because those two people were stand-ins, substitutes,
and they
but
did an
a good
outstanding job.
And the commanding general at Fort Benning was very in the center of everything too. And
I know, because we didn't really know what was going to happen in Fort Benning. We take it for granted, but we need to remember that Fort Benning is there. Yeah.
And the next morning, I went out to see the general, and he was very, he just didn't have that stature. He wasn't a cocky kind of guy.
He was just kind of laid back, reserved.
But no, his best friend had been killed in the Pentagon.
Oh my goodness!
And he didn't talk about it until after the fact. And within a matter of months, the general went up there to replace his friend at the Pentagon in that other position.
Really?
So we were 700, 800 miles away from Washington.
Right.
But because of Fort Benning, we were right in the center of the action.
And that's why some of the younger people or newer people to the community need to understand if there is something going on and it could be a matter of national security, you have to remember we live next door to Fort Benning. And we just can't pretend that, we have to be in tune. And I do remember at certain times the alert, they used to have a color at the main gate. And if the color changed, then security was at a different level when you were going in and out of Fort Benning. Of course, now they're checking everybody, but we didn't always have that scanning system.
And most of that began around 9/11. Because up until that point, you just drive up and they kind of wave you on through. And starting on that day, we've had the various levels of security.
So you all, did you stay there all night? Because everybody was trying to get the story out. It's not like where we have now Instagram and everything is so instant. Still, even then, we had a lot of the new technology, but the news didn't move as fast as it moves now. So you all really had to put some time in trying to get the facts.
Right. I stayed in the government center talking to the sheriff and the various officials about what's going on here. And by that time, there was a press conference at the public safety building with all of the Homeland Security people from the city and the mayor or Mayor Pro Tem. All of those people were down there. And so I really didn't go back to 12th Street for 5 or 6 hours.
Really?
Going from place to place.
Just trying to understand what if. Yeah.
Because there was no, you couldn't say, well, how did we do this before?
Right.
Because this was a whole new
Very
experience for the world, and certainly for us. And so we were just kind of making it up as we went along. And,
just trying to feel your way through.
but, you know, there were people, just in case, if things explode here, you go to the emergency rooms. If things get, if there's marching in the street here or anything, you go to the jail. We had all those things written in pencil because they changed.
Right.
Constantly.
Yeah, it was a fluid situation. So we was just kind of going minute by minute, and as we hear the national, then you kind of try to, because then things start happening in other places outside of New York. And I always tell people, you know, that happened in New York, but it was felt around the world, because at that time, my husband was working with the International Finance Group in Italy. And just so happened, the Spirit led him to come home on Sunday. Had he stayed, he would have been stuck.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the people that worked with him, they got stuck. He has clothes there. He never got them back. You know, he just never went back anymore. So,
Well, we had, there was a family in Pine Mountain whose daughter lost her life in Washington around the Pentagon incident.
right.
So there were things around us that were connected, closely connected to what
Right.
happened. But it was interesting on the 17th anniversary of 9/11 this past week. And a lot of people have been talking about it on social media. There was not a story in the Ledger Enquirer pertaining to 9/11. It's just a very brief mention,
Right.
which is a great indicator of how
Journalism
has
has changed.
dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, really. And I know that there's been a lot of the veterans like yourself have retired and moved on, and, you know, we have a new crew and all of that, and this media is different. But what we're going to do is hold that thought, go to our final break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
We'll be right back afterward from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by Warrior Outreach. Contact Command Sergeant Major Retired Sam Rhodes or Kathy Rhodes. The Hugel Foundation, enriching the community through Christian music support, community outreach, and the Georgia Through Photography Project. For more information, call B at 706-568-6431. Progressive Funeral Home, family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided. A touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road, trusted by generations. Best Care, transforming minds and bodies, leading the way in the latest techniques of medical weight loss and wellness. Certified in family medicine and bariatrics, Dr. Blunt is ready to assist in the transformation of your mind and body. Call today, 706-221-6477, or visit bestcarecolumbus.com. East Alabama Endocrinology, educating and caring for those living with diabetes in Alabama and Georgia. 1400 Bradley Lake Boulevard, 3320 Skyway Drive, Suite 602, Opelika. Take charge of diabetes and live your best life. State Senator Ed Harbison, serving the citizens of Georgia's 15th Senatorial District and on the front line for veterans every day.
Walmart's reason for supporting Thurgood Marshall College Fund is simple. We like to win. And we have been given a lot of exposure to some incredible talent. And we also believe that it's a part of our responsibility to the community to give back. This is a great opportunity to do both. It's been a wonderful experience for us through the years. We've appreciated our partnership. We believe in return on investment, and we have definitely had a remarkable return.
And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing my conversation with my awesome friend, the legendary journalist and author, Richard Hyatt. Richard, you have written 17 books. This one that gives all of that great background on Columbus, I encourage people to go and get it, is Richard Hyatt's Columbus.
It's available at Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. And I bought one from you years ago, and in all of my becoming a senior citizen, I knew I bought that book. Then I reached out to you on social media. Then after I did, it came to me where the book was. And it was actually in the office with some other paperbacks. And I tried to put them in a place so like moisture and time like that, it won't, make the cover roll back and that kind of thing. But you've had some really great stories. You've met a lot of famous people that a lot of our young people would never hear about. And of course, every time you come, I have to have you tell that story about when our beloved President Jimmy Carter and your encounter with Mrs. Carter and the grandbaby over the gouging prices of the lemonade and that kind of thing. But that's really a true story, and I always like to tell that to people.
Well, Amy Carter was about first or second grade, something like that. And the media from around the world was in there. And so. And
this is at Plains, right down the road.
And
right.
His home was open to the public practically. There was no barricades, or Secret Service wasn't as heavy. And Amy Carter had the idea, or someone planted the seed of those guys are thirsty.
Right.
So she set up a lemonade stand, typical childlike thing. I can't tell you right now, I don't remember what the prices were,
but they were high for that time.
They were very inflated. And so I wrote about it the next day. And I didn't slam her, but I did point out,
it was a little gouging. She was a little gouging because nothing's in Plains.
And she had an exclusive site. And her grandmother, who was her caretaker, friend, grandmother,
her biggest cheerleader, yes.
And when I went back to Plains the next day, because that was my assignment for better part of a year, get up in the morning, drive to Plains. And so Miss Lillian Carter sought me out in the crowd. And
she wanted that Richard Hyatt from Columbus.
Yeah, but, and all these other reporters, I was just a nobody out in the crowd. But all of a sudden I was a somebody, because right in the middle of this gaggle of press, here comes Miss Lillian in my face. And
I love that story.
The only thing that took the heat off me was that Sam Donaldson of ABC.
Yes.
I had done the same story.
Okay.
But he had a TV version, which is even more slamming to the
right,
child.
than the newspaper.
But so we shared the abuse that day.
The grandmother's wrath, yes. Because if people have never been to Plains, it's a nice little ride. It's just interesting to see.
Everybody should go.
Everyone should go. And then I just love the Carters because they're so very humble. He still teaches Sunday school, and they do habitat houses, and so just truly a servant, and we were also very proud because no one ever believed a peanut farmer from Georgia could become the president, and it happened, and it did.
And it was great for the Columbus Inquirer. Had been his family newspaper for, 50, 60 years, whatever.
Really?
His family was a subscriber. His father had been one.
So Plains was getting the Columbus paper. So that was their paper. Oh my goodness. Okay.
And it was always important, as I was saying. We didn't get along with each other, and it was very important to us that they subscribed to the morning paper down there,
not the evening
these other
paper.
guys. But it was. That's why I became a permanent beat writer on Jimmy Carter for that period of the year leading up to his election.
Yeah.
And I never thought, when I was writing sports, college football games or whatever, that I'd be covering a presidential campaign.
Yes.
But there I was.
A successful presidential campaign. That is just a part of your history and your legacy. And of course, I was telling people, it's so much history. They just must have a sit down with you, and eventually you're going to believe me when I say that you're really famous and all of that, and you're going to have it where people can come and sit with you and just hear all those stories. And you wrote about social media, the Fish House Gang. People had never heard of that, but that was, you called it a kind of the dark characters that you didn't see really behind politics here in Columbus, in addition to those 17 books. Because you were telling me the person that wrote the Fish House Gang, the Big Eddie Club, you knew him.
Well, he came over here from Great Britain on a regular basis for a couple of years, covering this Stocking Strangler case. And so we got to know each other, and he talked to a lot of the local reporters, getting our ideas, and then went back and wrote his ideas.
Right, on the Big Eddie Club. Is that still in print? That book is still in print?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. So if people want it, they can get the Big Eddie Club. Right. But that's not you. That's the gentleman from...
David Rose.
David Rose.
And my only falling out with David, I can all argue about some of his facts, I guess, but he didn't tell until the last third of the book. He didn't let the readers of that book know that he was connected to the Carlton Gary defense team.
Oh,
and,
okay.
A paid member at times.
Right.
And had access to Carlton Gary that no one else had.
Right.
And in my eyes, he should have disclosed that in the first 10 pages, not the last 50 pages.
Right, because you came up in journalism when it was, integrity was a big thing. Of course, now, it's whatever,
well, when you
however.
come from around the world, you can
right.
be kind of loose with some of your opinions and facts. But,
right. Full disclosure is very important.
I would tell people to read it, but just take it with a grain of salt and read something else to get some of the...
So I'm going to suggest that they read all 17 of your books. I want everybody to buy all 17. We want to buy Richard Hyatt's Columbus, which is those 40 years of writing about Columbus. Those that reached out on social media, they can go and get the Big Eddie Club. They can read all your books, weigh it out against that one. But you have to plan our next adventure. You and I, we got to do phase 2. We've been to the ladies' prison, so you just think of what the next great adventure is, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
We got to figure that one out.
We do. Well, thank you so much for giving me some time today. Thank you. All right. This has been Straightforward. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.